Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio, 20 years strong, right here. I'm so proud of that, so proud of that. And you know what? For 20 years, we've been bringing you the absolute best as far as guests go, and today is no exception. Today is no exception indeed. In fact, we've been supported by some of the best in the paranormal, and today is no exception. 20 years ago, there was this group, this outfit out there that I know you guys know. You've loved them for 20 plus years. TAPS, Ghost Hunters. And they've been in our corner for over 20 years. In fact, when we came along 20 years ago, we humbly asked them if they would help support us, if they would help us get off the ground. And they've been in our corner ever since. And today, we have a very distinguished guest from TAPS and Ghost Hunters. In fact, we have Steve Gonsalves with us. Steve's been a public speaker and educator about paranormal phenomena for more than 2 decades as a main cast member for the hit television series Ghost Hunters, as well as Ghost Hunters Live, Ghost Hunters Academy, and Ghost Nation. Steve helped pave the way for a worldwide paranormal explosion. I think that's a fair way of putting it. Steve started his work in paranormal studies at a very young age and has investigated over 1,500 reported haunted locations. He's had the privilege of working close with Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal pioneers and the inspiration for the Conjuring movie series, as well as Dr. William G. Roll of Poltergeist fame, along with his multiple appearances on a variety of television, radio, and paranormal series. Steve executive produced and co-directed the hit documentary films, The House in Between 1 and 2 as well. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back to the program. And I will give him a hearty thank you as well for the many, many years, Steve Gonsalves. Steve, thank you so much for coming on once again to Darkness Radio.
Hey, what's going on? Of course. What's going on? Hi, Tim.
I'm just excited to have you back. By the way, today we're going to be talking about the book, A Life with Ghosts, True, Terrifying, and Insightful Tales from My Favorite Haunts, which we've talked about once before on the show, but I want to stress to people, we have a link in the description of this program because we want you to go out and get that book if you haven't yet, which is a wonderful book. I've read it more than once.
Wow, thank you. That's Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to put together. Spent a couple of years crafting all the tales and stories and picking things and putting it all and getting the co-writer and finding a publisher and all that stuff. And I'm glad people really enjoyed it. Twice even. Look at this crazy to me.
Well, actually 3 times. I read it 3 times. Yes. Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to absorb in that. I think when we see you from week to week on Ghost Hunters and people follow you around, people have that thirst to want to get to know you better. And I'll speak from even people who meet you on the road at conventions or meet you on the road at signings or wherever it is they're meeting you or signing up for private ghost hunts. I think is it fair to say people think that once they've met you, they just automatically assume that's my friend Steve because you're that relatable?
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily that I'm that relatable or just that I'm there every week or now with streaming. Sometimes I'll see people where they're like, it's an every night thing, or they'll, but it's always flattering and super fun. And it takes a lot for someone to come up to a stranger and just be like, hey, I really like what you do. Whether it's at a convention or on the street or wherever, it's awesome. And people are usually super duper friendly about it. And it's always surprising though, because you'd never think being a paranormal investigator that you're going to, have people in random malls and Starbucks and different places just be like, look at him.
But I think it's really a toss up between you and Dave Tango. I think between the two of you, I think you both win the prize of not only most relatable between the two of you, but most likable between the two of you and most loved, right? Between the two of you of the group. I mean, I won't expect you to answer that because I don't want heat from the rest of the group. But I'll just tell you what I observe when I go to these different conventions. And that is that people flock to you two and just say, no, those are my buddies. I mean, and I hear that a lot. I hear, no, those are my buddies. Those are my guys. Those are my friends. And there's this ownership. Do you find that crosses a boundary? Or are you cool with that? Is that good?
No, it's fine. It is, to your point, people do, I think, when they meet, I think any of us on any of the shows that are on, weekly, they feel like they already know you, where I think, especially with us, because we are exactly who we are. Jason doesn't put on any tango. Nobody is. There are some people in paranormal, television who might be a little different when you meet them in person,
Mhm.
where us and most people I know that work in the field and in the world of the television space there. I think because they do, yeah, they see us, they feel like they're friends, and they come up and they say, "Oh my gosh, Steve!" They'll hug you and bring you in, or just grab onto you, and then they sometimes they check themselves though, like, "Oh, sorry," like I feel like I know you, I feel like but I'm realizing that you've just met me a second ago, so it's different for you, and you have to kind of go like, "Yeah, there's a little, like, yeah, I don't know," but 98% of the time, it's the best and sweetest interaction you could ever want. It's awesome.
Do you find people read A Life with Ghosts and then they really find out how much they didn't know about you?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes I think, yeah, a lot of people don't know I spent some time in jewelry, or even though it's mentioned on the show, they don't know that I, had a background in police work. Um, a lot of the stuff, like my love for horror movies and metal music and all that stuff, it has been on the show. I've snuck carcass shirts and different things on a few episodes of the show. So that's peeked through a few times. um and people know I have tattoos, people know I love Disney. It's just
Mhm.
a thing that most people know. But a lot of things in the book, like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were in these bands. I didn't know you knew these people. I didn't know you did this. I didn't know you worked. A lot of people didn't know that, I had any time working with Ed and Lorraine, or they didn't know that I, for instance, met John Zaffis when I was 12, for the first time. So a lot of that stuff, I think, like, holy cow, that, they don't know that stuff. And I even think a lot of the lineage there with, like, Jay and I, and the early time of the team, that dynamic, I think, is a little bit muddy in the ether and in people's, um, so I think to hear it from the perspective of the person who was there and lived it is interesting to people. They learn a lot that way. Like, oh, I didn't know you knew Jay for 10 years before you had a show. I didn't know Grant came along and did this. I didn't know that, this happened and you guys, or this is why you went to this place. So I think there's a lot of learning and fun little side missions in the book that people can, dig into and figure out. But yeah, good point. I think a lot of people do. I collect a lot of things that I don't think people realized, because I'm not, one of those people that, is out there saying, I have this haunted collection. I have, none of that's a bad thing.
Right.
It's just not my thing. I think it's awesome. It's cool and super cool. I love it. I would go to John Zappa's, anybody's place, and just marvel and soak it in and love it. I'm just saying I'm not the type of person that but I do have a lot of that stuff. I collect a lot of, like, um, I think a lot of people would consider morbid things that, they didn't quite realize until they read the book. I
Right.
collect a lot of, like, human skulls and skeletons, and I have a lot of different things that some people could find unsavory, but to me are beautiful and part of life. And I, honor them. I don't look at them as, like, grim ornaments that I just go, it's like, I hold them in reverence.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think there is some learning there. But that's not the intent of the book. It's just, when you're dealing, at least in my experience, dealing with a publisher, say, and they want to get your book everywhere, and there needs to be a little bit in the book of, so people who, say, pick it up on the shelf would go, oh, I don't necessarily know that show or this guy, but ghosts are cool. There's a chapter in them that sort of lays out who this person is. So we had to put in a bit of an autobiographical, is that the word? Autobiographical.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Something
Gosh,
like that.
woo!
Yeah, yeah.
a bit of an autobiographical section in there just to get it out there as to who, for any first time people are like, oh, this is cool. And then so that's in there. That's that first chapter. That's sort of my background and how we all met and how the show came about. Um, and then you just open the doors to all the haunted places and everything we've done and all that stuff.
That's a good point to jump off, right? And get everybody introduced to you and then go from there. You know, we had John on a couple weeks ago, and John was our second or third guest that we ever had on the program. And of course, kind of a heavy hitter to have on the program when you're first starting out. And one of the things I want to bring up with you that I brought up with him, and he expounded quite a bit, of course, and I want to get your opinion on this as well. Recently, Ed and Lorraine's house sold, along with I won't get into the specifics, but I'll put it in a generality of, along with the items that were in Ed and Lorraine's museum, to Matt Rife and Company, and now they're doing investigations of the museum, and then also there's Tony Spira and his touring company that toured with Annabelle, and I got John's impressions of whether he thought that Ed would have ever wanted Annabelle to be touring. Do you have specific thoughts of any of that, about whether it's doing investigations at the Morin Museum or actually taking Annabelle on tour?
You know, I think it's, I think it's maybe a little bit of a sensationalized thing, and there's no real reason to take that doll on the road unless, it's, I guess, for monetary purposes. Why would you do all of that? So I think that may be a sticking point for some people. Like, they can't see a reason why somebody would do that other than, I know that those folks, and they've been super pleasant to me and very nice and very sweet. But my heart is with John Zaffis and that gang, and I would lean towards what he thinks in that regard, in terms of if Ed or Lorraine would have been supportive of that sort of thing. I did work with them on a few cases, but I wasn't close to them in the sense that I would really know what their brains work like or what they're thinking, or I can't speak for them. I wasn't close enough to them.
Okay, that's fair enough.
In that regard. But I would say that no matter what people think of them in that, I was with them on occasions when there was no one else around, where they still talked about Annabelle and still held Annabelle in that sort of reverence where you don't touch her, you don't go next to her, you don't, so I can't think of so to me, I kind of think they really did believe that it shouldn't be, messed with. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they would have liked that, but I can't speak for them. They maybe they would be doing it themselves. Maybe they, in terms of the doll actually, having a demon in it, I don't know. If you believe in that sort of thing, maybe, but I just can't personally think of a reason why. Like, if you're all ethereal, all powerful, all knowing, all destructive, all everything that you may have been in the kingdom of Christ at one point in time, but somehow you're trapped in this little doll. And so to me, it's, could there be something around the doll or something with it or something that just serendipitously happened and got an attachment, perhaps? But, I think most people in the real investigative world aren't too afraid of Annabelle or what she's up to.
Do you think maybe it's gotten to the point now where people who have been around the doll or people who have heard of the legend of the doll might have even created a tulpa around this thing and maybe have given it more power than it should have?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like a collective conscious kind of like
yeah.
You build it more powerful than it actually is through a power of suggestion and all of that. For sure. I mean, it is a scary situation. And to be honest, if you look at some of the actual facts, there have been a tremendous amount of really strange circumstances around Annabelle and the doll, and some things that, maybe you could attribute to a dark force, because some things don't, some of the accidents, some of the, don't seem like excuse me. It doesn't seem like it is perhaps serendipitously just occurring, but, there could be ways where you spin it and so I don't really know. But even still, I'm not going to, taunt her,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
poke her with a stick just in
Right.
case.
Right. Yes. You don't necessarily go around throwing holy water and saying, "Come at me, Annabelle." Right? You don't necessarily do that either. Right. And you don't poke the bear. I get that. But I find it interesting. I brought up the subject with John, knowing that it's that and the Conjuring movies tend to be a sensitive subject for him, and he was very candid, which I appreciated very much so.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I find anyway in this field, they're you just talk to each other, get along, see where everybody's coming from.
Yeah.
It's all just a family. All just they've all been super super nice to me. When it comes to the purchase, I think most people just never saw that coming.
Right.
They didn't know that Matt Rife had anything to do with the paranormal or even cared or wanted it. That wasn't on anybody's radar. So just find out that all of a sudden this may seem to a lot of people that it's just a publicity type of thing or just doing it for content or doing it. But, I've talked to a lot of people who, are close with that camp and said, no, they really, hold it in high regard and want to, make sure they're, honoring the legacy. But I don't know anybody over there, so I don't, I don't know.
Let's play what if real quick here before we even head to break here. Let's say Jay gives you a call and says, "You know what, Steve, I got a call from Elton and Matt, and they said we could come over and investigate the museum if we wanted to, one time only for his channel, and we're going to get the band back together just for that one time to investigate the museum." Would it interest you, or is that something you don't think Jay would even tackle?
Jay, I don't know him as somebody who will do things just for the sensationalism or just for the, I guess, clicks you would say or whatnot. So I don't think he would just do it just to do it. Mm-hmm. But if he thought there was a real reason to, or if he thought there was a real haunting there and something that he could really find out from it, if there was truly a reason where, there, and it sounds silly to talk about, but it is true. If there was somebody there that needed some help in some regard, I think he would be a little more into it. But if Jay calls, I'd be, of course, he's the man. Yeah, whatever he needs. Yeah, call me. I'm there. Whatever you need. Come on.
I just think after watching some of the stuff he's done with JV, it where it's been a little more on the investigative side, I think it'd be kind of fun to get everybody together once and maybe even bring John with and go do the Warrens Museum just once.
I mean, yeah, we see each other all the time. We haven't investigated together in about 2 years.
Really?
Just taking a bit of time, but you will see us all together again for sure. Whether it's on, we would definitely, investigate with Jay on his channel, whatnot. It's just, in the starting of any of those kind of channels, you do have to think of things like cost and how much will it cost to get 4 people, 5 people from around the country to, get there and do that sort of thing and whatnot. But yeah, for sure. We're a family. We'll do it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's kind of to me, I don't know, the wheels are always turning, right? So you always think, what would be interesting to see? And Jay puts up a lot of interesting content there. Let me ask you this. Has it been a while since you and Dave have gone out and investigated, or have you guys knocked around a little bit?
We haven't investigated together in quite a little bit. We do events,
Yes.
where there is some investigating, but I don't think anybody that goes to those or is, part of those as a speaker go there with a real intent to do some, digging in solid paranormal. It's a more of a shared experience. Let's see what we can get. You know that you're there on a sort of a limited sort of time. But actual like go to a place for a couple weeks or a month or so and dig in. It's been a little bit, and yeah, it's been a little while.
Okay.
At least a year, I'd say.
I know you have a date coming up in June at the Belgrove Plantation in King George, Virginia, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And we'll have a link to that as well. But tell me a little bit. You've been there before, I take it, right? Belgrove?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that always strikes me about that place is just how beautiful it is. And the history, the history of that place is pretty awesome. And I'd say as an investigator, having a rich history, it's not necessary, but it definitely helps. It really does. It helps you sort of figure out the investigation and what you're going to do. And a lot of people don't like to know too much before going in, because then you can get quite biased and lock into certain things that you may or may not even be. But personally, I like to have a little bit of information before I go in and figure out, what, because I like to have some historical data. If I know that this house, for instance, is known that, there was a family that lived there and they happened to be in the textile business, and which happens to be the case, it would be in the textile business, and I may want to use that during my investigation. I may want to talk about that. Or if I knew that, the family who lived there the longest, I want to know, maybe did they like to ride horses? Did they love, the smell of fresh baked bread? Did they, I want to know things about them that I can use during the investigation. I also want to know what the buildings have been used for over time, and all the different reiterations of it. Places that were, a prison, a winery, and also maybe a reform school at one point. All these. So now you have all the more chances for trauma, for tragedy, but also for the devotion of things, to love, to happy experiences, all these different things. And you also have a lot of different ammunition that you can use now. If it was just a winery, sure, you can talk about, stepping on grapes as much as you want, or, making things up.
Sure. No, right.
But if it was also a prison at one point, if it was also, you have a lot more you can sort of work with. But
what do you get more? What do you get more of a response with? Honey or vinegar, with positive or negative? What do you find you get more of a response with?
It depends on the haunting. For us, the negative, the provoking, the sort of for me, and I think for most of our team, if it's warranted, we'll use that. If it's a family, and it's a woman, a spirit, and she's just forlorn because she lost her son, and there's also the husband is there and he's distraught, and he's, you're not dealing with spirits that, deserve to be provoked and deserve to be, I know you're here, where are you, come out, you're scaring the family that lives, they might not even know they're scaring the family that lives here, and here you are, barking at them, and but if it was, if you're dealing with an intelligent type of haunting, and it was somebody who, gosh, was doing some of the things that on this earth you don't think of doing, or, nefarious people who are, you can, I think, push that boundary a little bit more and be a little more, listen, what are you doing? Talk to us, or however you want to provoke. Mm-hmm. Some people take it, or if you're dealing with inhuman, or demonic, sure, apparently, and we see some, evidence of that using harsh language, being a little more aggressive, can get it to be, just think of it like a bull, I guess.
Yeah.
If you trying to get the bull's attention, just standing there still, may just like look around. But if you're like, hey, mother,
Yeah.
hey, The bulls are like, "Hey, oh, I see you now."
Right,
like,
right. Then you're stirring it up, and it's stirring you up at the same time.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of different techniques that are used all the time. So I think it depends on the haunting. You can be very, very sweet and very nice and be respectful, and still get a lot of interactions. You really can. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Um, I think what we'll do is we'll take a break here. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about not only investigations and a little bit about investigative technique as well, but I want to talk about a little bit of a controversial subject. One of your peers had talked a little bit about the fact that paracons aren't dead yet. So I want to bring up the paracon scene for a minute. I know that's a little bit of a hot button issue, but we'll talk briefly about it because you're on the paracon scene quite a bit. So I think we'll talk a little bit about it when we come back, and a little bit about that controversy because it did come up this past week and a half, and the fact that there are paracons that are burgeoning and alive and well out there. So let's talk about that when we come back. But I want to talk a little bit more about the book as well. And I want to talk a little bit about some of your favorite haunts, about some of your favorite places to go. I want to talk as well about, we'll talk about some other things that are going on in Steve's world as well. So, by the way, if you want to go out and hunt, get the, do you get that, Steve? The little,
Yeah.
It's bad. I know it's a bad pun. If you want to go out and hunt with Steve, you can do so in June of this year. And we've got a link in the description of this program to go do so. So you can do that, as well as go get that book. The book is called A Life with Ghosts, Truly Terrifying and Insightful Tales from My Haunts. It's Steve writing along with Michael. Is it Aloisi? Is that his name?
Michael Aloisi. Yeah.
Aloisi. Okay. See, I'm horrible with the last name, but Michael Aloisi. So, and we've got a link to that book as well. So you can go get that book as well during the break. When we come back, more with Steve Gonsalves right here from Ghost Hunters. When we come back right here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Steve Gonsalves. The name of the book, A Life with Ghosts, True, Terrifying, and Insightful Tales from My Favorite Haunts. We're going to find out what maybe a couple of those are here in the second half of this program. Also, if you'd like to go ghost hunting with Steve, which is appropriate. I mean, it's not like you're going to go sip tea in Disneyland with him. You're not going to do that. Well, I shouldn't speak so soon. You might be able to work something out with Steve. But if you want to go ghost hunting with Steve, we have a link to that as well. Ghost Hunt Weekends, by the way. He has a ghost hunt coming up in June, and we will have a link to that as well. So you can go join him out there as well. All right, Steve, I promised we'll get the controversial stuff out of the way, and then we'll get back into easier stuff, as it were. There are a lot of people screaming about ghost conventions are dead. And then your colleague, Amy Bruni, went on and said, whoa, folks, not so fast. There's quite a few conventions that are doing very, very well, hers included. Strange Escapes is doing very well. And there are a lot of conventions around the country that are doing very well right now and making plenty of money. And it just takes a little bit of marketing. It takes the fact that people need to know that they're out there. And I think it probably takes, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but there's a little bit of a, would you say that the paranormal might have a little bit of an issue with marketing to the younger generation right now? Is that maybe an issue?
I hadn't thought of that. I don't think so.
No?
Um, no, I don't think so. Maybe, perhaps, but I mean, I mean, I do conventions of all kinds: horror, pop culture, sci-fi, comic,
Mhm.
paranormal conventions, and I see a mixed crowd from old to young at all of them. Um,
Answer me this question because you do mixed conventions. Okay. So, what draws people heavily to a horror and comic convention or a mixed convention, but doesn't draw to a lighter convention of just a singular theme?
you know what? Well, obviously, if you have a little more of a mix, you're going to have a much broader net, a wider net for ticket sales and for patrons to come, that sort of thing. But I think there's room for all of them. I've been to strictly horror conventions that are booming, but even then, they still have a few folks in there who aren't quite, strictly just in horror movies. Um, and I think that's the same with everything. You go to New York Comic Con, um, they call it New York Comic Con. I've never written a comic, but I'm there.
Yeah.
It's so that it is a little bit broader, a lot of them, but there are some that are specific that still do really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are quite a few cons that do quite well. I think the criticism was aimed at specific, just the paranormal con. And I think what Amy was pointing out, and it's quite a valid argument indeed, was I think it was thrown out. Michigan Paracon, of course, the organizers were just at the point where, you know what, we've been doing this for 16, 17 years and we need a break. So they folded it. But it was the biggest paranormal convention in the, continuous 48, 50 states, whatever. Right. And they did need that break. I don't think people realize how much it took to put that convention on. And
you're right. I mean, I'm not super close to any of those organizers. I know, the folks in Michigan Paracon, great people. Brad, the gang, Tim, they're all fantastic. And there sometimes you did see and hear them say like, I don't know how much longer.
right.
This is rough. Like it's they put a lot of time into it, and there's a large group of people who put them together, and some are volunteers even.
Yeah, all of them were. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot to deal with, and if they need a break, let them have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're great dudes. They're so cool and so fun and so friendly. Like if they need a break, let them take it.
I think the other part too, and I'll put it right back in the people who are throwing out the criticism, and I'm not afraid to say it. You don't have to say it, Steve. I'll say it I'm not saying it for you. I'm saying it for myself. Is you can throw the criticism out that they're lightly attended and people aren't going anymore, but you have to put the money out and you have to go. That's the other part. When your favorite paracelebs are out there, you have to go see them. You have to make the effort to go see them. And you can't say, well, but if I don't catch them there, I'll catch them at the next one. You can't just take for granted that they're going to be at every one, because that's not how this works. It's not a traveling circus where they're going to shill at every single convention you see. That's how the market folds. I don't know if people realize that if you take it for granted that, and I'm just going to use you as an example, Steve. Don't take this for as a slight, because it's not. But Steve Gonsalves is not going to be here in Minnesota, out in California, down in Florida, over on the East Coast, and then in Alaska to do one. It doesn't work that way, folks. You don't travel to all 50 states to do every single convention all year round. You have other things going on, correct?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I don't think I've done any of the West Coast conventions. It's just hard for me to get out there. I've done there's a fan expo in Salt Lake City I did once. I did do an event at the Queen Mary, but that's not a convention. The events, like actual events that Tango and I, or Amy, with her strange escapes and the ghost hunt weekends that I'll do, and different events around, just like the Darkness radio events we would do back in those luckily always do good, always sell out, always. But that's 100 people, 120 people. You're not talking a convention. You need 2,500 to even break even, probably.
Right.
So you're dealing with a much bigger scope. So I'm not trying to compare the two, but paranormal events, I think, are separate from conventions. The events are always, they're always, luckily, people really want to just be in that environment and have fun with like-minded people who are into hauntings and into the paranormal, that want to exchange ideas. They want to meet folks that they've seen on TV, that they've sort of that have inspired them, and want to see if they can pick their brains. It's just fun for people,
right.
those.
Right.
But you're talking about, 75 to 150 people. You're not talking about 5,000, 10,000. So,
right.
But with the conventions, the paranormal ones, there are some really, really big, successful ones. Yeah, even New Jersey, Para-Unity. That's every year they have to shut the doors. Last year or the year before, the fire marshal made them close the doors. They couldn't let any more people in. The fire marshal was yelling at us to get our line moving because it was like 6 hours long. And that's everybody there, not just us. I'm not saying us ghost hunters, but everybody in the paranormal world there had it's just a very well-run, well-attended paranormal convention. You have Pennhurst, that I think they said they had 10,000 people. That's a paranormal convention. So to say that, Paracons are dead, I think is a misstep. I think it's I see that plenty are going and very successsul. There are, of course, some that, haven't quite been, there's the one in Minnesota a little bit. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty big one. That was just paranormal. But they had other issues. They had an organizer that was not very honest with the venue. We won't mention any names, but you know who that is. That soured the venue. And then I heard myself from the organizer of that convention, who said that the casino told them that the paranormal group, they like to drink and hang out and exchange stories. They don't gamble. That was their big. He said, we could have a country concert in here this weekend, and they're all going out and gambling. We could have this here, and they're all going out, and that's where we make our money. We don't make our money in the bars. We don't make our money when you guys just sitting in the restaurants, telling ghost stories. So I think that was also a bit of why that one. It's usually ends up being a venue, issue over an attendance one. Missouri, unfortunately, that was a Paracon, and they did cancel. I haven't talked to them about that, so I'm not sure exactly why they did. But again, hey, it takes so much work, so much marketing, it really thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So for an organizer to do that, a lot of times they're coming out of pocket for the first few years, and then hoping that they break even, and then they can start making money, but that's just the way it is in this business, and you just got to deal with it. I've been doing paranormal conventions for 20 years, and I can only think of 2 or 3 that have canceled or quit.
Right, yeah. And the main part of this here, folks, is if you're lucky to have one within 100, 200 miles of you, go support it, right? If it's there, go support it. Go and partake in it. Go be a local that puts your money where your mouth is and go support it. The fact of the matter is that that's the only way that it comes back year after year after year and continues to grow. You tell your friends about it. You tell your family members about it. You tell your community about it. Go ask that promoter if you can help promote it. Go hang flyers in your town. Go do whatever it is you can to help them grow, because that's the only way that the community grows. Instead of sitting and posting online that, this one failed or this one doesn't do it well. Well, it's easy for you to pardon my language, Steve, to shit talk the convention. It's harder for you to go out and actually volunteer to help. And it's easier to, it's easier to go out there and just be a good member of the community and help, right? So Just,
Yeah, I mean, we're all in it together.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And especially if you have a passion for the community. I mean, what you might as well be a good citizen of the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, be a positive force in the community. Go out there and do something. And the cool thing about volunteering for the convention, you probably get cool swag. You're probably going to get some sort of T-shirt or something from the promoter. You're probably going to get in for free to the convention. I know a lot of promoters who will get you in for the weekend if you want help, right? And you're probably going to get to hang out with cool people like Steve. And then eventually maybe he'll make you a friend. You never know.
Well, a lot of conventions, rely on volunteers, and a lot of the volunteers get some really, some really good. I don't know if perks are the right word, but they end up forming a family and they have fun. They get in for free. They usually get a place to stay.
Yeah.
And every volunteer I talk to just has a blast the whole weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not all conventions are run with volunteers, but the ones that are, they love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we'll get on to happier stuff here. I just, I got a little burr in my saddle when I see people kind of bang the drum negatively for some of the events, because the events are fun. They're a lot of fun. It's especially to get out and meet people in the community and be able to talk stories and swap stories with them and get people's experiences out there too. And people, there's a lot of like-minded people in the community who are have had really cool experiences. It's kind of fun to talk to a lot of people out there about the experiences that they've had. And why deny yourself that experience, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And a lot of people, you talk to them, they look forward to it every year. Like, I come every year. I've been waiting, all year to tell you this ghost story. Or I've been waiting, and a lot of people, I try to stay out of all of the complaining or whatever happens, and just, even if I see it, I don't comment it. I always blast everyone I go to. I have a great time. I'm in a very fortunate position. I think a lot of us are, where even if the convention is lightly attended, our lines are still, people are there to see us and say hello. That doesn't help the promoter,
Right.
They want a lot of attendance for everybody. That's the way that works. But I would imagine people who complain about them maybe just don't have the best time at them. Maybe they just don't have fun when they go. Maybe they don't like meeting people. Maybe they don't make enough money to make it worth their time. I don't know what the problem. I have no idea.
Like I said, there's different ways to get there, though. I mean, you could volunteer and get there. There's that as well. But just speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for you here, Steve, but my favorite part of going to these events is to be able to meet people and hear their stories. And I'm a storyteller. I love getting on the show and being able to talk to people and get their stories. So for me, it's wonderful to be able to show up in person and get to meet some of the people who listen to the show and be able to get their stories. To me, that's wonderful. It's a great weekend that way. I have a wonderful weekend. And
if you enjoy them, there's no, it's just great to meet people and even if you're not just hearing their stories, there are a lot of people who go to them just to exchange ideas and it's just always a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You are one who gets to accrue stories from people who may not be with us anymore. So you get to go to different areas, different abandoned buildings, different places that may be haunted, and get stories from people who are no longer with us. Let me ask you this. If you had to put together a top 5 list of places all time that you've been to, can you name them off the top of your head? No pressure, by the way.
Gosh, I know everybody would say this, but there are favorites for different reasons, but if I'm going, for instance, I like certain places because they're always super active, but I like other places because, I was actually able to help somebody. I know that they still live and sleep in their own bed at night because, we've empowered them to be able to either get what's there to move on or be able to live with it, which is usually the case, that they have to just learn how to accept and live with it. And we've helped people both ways. Those feel great. But if I had to just, say five.
Top 5 experiences. We'll put it that way. It doesn't necessarily have to be places, but experiences. Top 5 experiences in this field.
Experiences would be harder. I would need longer. But places, I would say Waverly Hills, Louisville, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
USS North Carolina.
Okay.
For history. Birdcage Theater.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This game is tough, Tim.
Sorry. But I'm going to nail you down to those other two.
Yeah. Penhurst is pretty awesome. Stanley Hotels, really. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Okay. You can have more than 5 if you want. Do you have another one? You have another one that really stands out?
I'd say those are the ones for me because I look for, if there's no, not mission, that's not the right word, but no, even agenda is not the word, but no, if I'm not helping anybody in terms of a family or a business owner or because we do, and we do look for that. And it sounds silly, it sounds like TV, but there really are places who can't stay open because they can't have employees. There really are places who, there really are families who won't sleep in their own rooms. There are kids who won't stay at their grandparents' house because they're terrified of their own, so if none of that is happening, I look for just frequency and the severity of the activity, not severity in terms of am I getting, hit and things thrown at me or tripped downstairs. Severity, I mean, high frequency of just door creaks and footsteps, but so adding severity to that, is there, moving objects? Is there, you seeing apparitions? Are you, that sort of thing? So high frequency, a good severity. And I'd say those places are at the top of that list.
The person that sticks out in your mind when I say to you, the person that sticks in your heart and soul as the person you've helped the most, that will stay with you till the day you die, is that person has made an impact on me.
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, not me. I just.
There are quite a few. A lot of times there's a place we did a zoo, right? It's in Alexandria, Louisiana, and this was an awesome case, but not apparently, but there's a gentleman who passed away, and he was the proprietor of the zoo, and he really did love animals and conservation. It was very conservation forward, and he died, and his wife was a politician in town and didn't want to be on the show. She wasn't part of the investigation and that stuff. But when we showed the evidence and played it, she was sobbing, and I just went and talked to her, and she's like, "That's my husband." And she told me she'd been waiting 15 years to hear his voice.
Wow. That's something. That's really something. The fact that you could give her that, even off air, the fact that you could give her that is something special, It's
like those kind of things where you're like, oh, wow, we really did. This person now feels okay because of us. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are a lot of things like that, where you're like, ooh, yeah. And then it sounds silly, but just, the television world, you end up helping people and you don't expect it, and that's not just us. I think that's anybody, even, anybody, not even television, but just anybody who has a platform where you're reaching people, because people stop me on the street and be like, oh my gosh, I got married because of your show, or I was deployed and your show is the only reason I was able to get through it. I would have taken my own, you hear people tell you that their life would probably be over if, they didn't have your show to look forward to. All of these crazy things. And you're like, oh my gosh, you don't expect that kind of thing to happen from, investigating the paranormal. It's very, very, it's awesome, but not an expected, spill off from the work.
Does that fuel you? Does that make you want to keep going further? or is that one of those things that it's just a nice feeling to know that you've made that impact on that person?
Yeah, it's just nice to know. Um, I mean, fueling it does because you do want to help, but I think in the real world because most of the places we investigate, I mean, I guess nowadays they know of the show and that sort of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
for a long time we'd investigate and you're just someone who helped. They're not like, oh, it's you from Ghost Hunter. It's just you're there, you're a paranormal investigator, and you actually did help them. So that does fuel you to help people, but being stopped on the street and just getting accolades and that sort of thing. That for me anyway doesn't act. It's nice and it's very flattering, but it doesn't act as fuel. A little shy, I guess, in that regard.
Have you ever sat and thought? Now, this isn't a pump sunshine up your ass type thing, but have you ever sat and thought about the fact that at one time, the organization that you work with that's been on television has been not only memed, but has been a joke on South Park. I mean, it's been a household name. Has that ever hit you right between the eyes?
Yeah. Sometimes some of the bigger pop culture stuff,
Yeah,
is a little crazy. You kind of get like imposter syndrome, or you just kind of say, no, no way, or it just feels like it's somebody else, and you just happen to be watching it, yeah, that stuff doesn't seem.
it's been lampooned on Saturday Night Live, brother.
No,
It's been mainstream. It is mainstream. I mean,
yeah,
Ghost Hunters is mainstream.
I remember the first one. I just got a bunch of texts one day and like, you guys are on David Letterman. I was like, what? And it was like during season 1, I think. It was early on. And it was Chris Elliott. He and Gilbert Godfrey did a spoof on our show and did it on David Letterman. And that was the first time I was like, wait, so this is kind of crazy. Like, why? And it was kind of funny. Chris Elliott was Jason. He had like a fake belly under his Taps jacket, and he had like a fake shaved head and stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy pretending to be me put like a camera in the toilet, like trying to get like, like I guess being a pervert of some sort. But yeah, so that kind of stuff, you just go, holy cow, and especially South Park, and that was at the time when, South Park it still is a big deal, but at that time it was the sort of holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, that time it was blowing up the first time. I mean, now it's blown up in a different way, but I mean, that first time when Ghost Hunters was featured, I mean, I think it blew everybody's mind in the paranormal community that Ghost Hunters right now is on South Park. It was like universes crossed, and it was like, are we really seeing this right now?
Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. It was great. I think it. Yeah, all of that stuff. Just you kind of just, at least for me, you put up blinders to it. Like if you think about it, it just gets weird. It's like, who am I? I'm just some schlub. Like.
I've gotten Jay's opinion on this before, and talked to him a little bit about this. I think we might have even talked to Grant about it before, but what are your impressions on the sci-fi years where you had the WWE wrestlers in? What did you think specifically of like CM Punk and some of the others that came in? Did you have good experiences there?
It was, for us anyway, it was, as not being television people, we didn't quite understand when they first started doing it. Like, look how, like and I think we also didn't realize that our show was that popular that it could be used as a springboard for other things. That's why they're doing it. It was to promote wrestling somehow wrestling got work done being in sci-fi and it being super popular. Like there was, like, you had crazy ratings for whatever reason. Well, wrestling is very popular. I just mean,
yeah.
For whatever reason on sci-fi, I know wrestling has a huge following, obviously. But I'll say, the first experience wasn't good. And most people know this, so I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
But CM Punk was our first wrestler with us, and he was not nice to anybody. Not to me, not to Jay, not to any of the execs, not to our directors, nobody. He just made it very obvious that he didn't want to be there. didn't want anything to do with what we were doing. But he actually apologized for it in recent years, which I thought was nice. He was doing an interview and somebody brought it up and he just turned straight to the camera and he goes, "Guys, I'm sorry." He was like, "I was an a-hole." He's like, "And I don't even know why. I love you guys." And he was like, so he's like, "I'm taking this opportunity now to apologize to the Ghost Hunters guys." So I thought that was nice. The fact that, he realized that maybe he was a little gruff for no reason. And, that 15 years later, he apologizes for it. So good for him.
Yeah.
I bet he's a super cool guy. But I will say that's the only negative experience ever with the wrestlers.
I know didn't you have Elijah Burke, I think was one of them?
We had Elijah Burke, we had Kofi Kingston, we had The Miz. We had a whole slew. Yeah, we The Miz was awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy. I've interviewed him. Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. We didn't know what to make him of at first, because he's one of the wrestlers that stays in that character.
Yeah.
So even when he's like, we're working with him, he's like, "What'd you say to me?" Like being that wrestler character. But then he comes up between me and Tang and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm not really like this, I promise. I'm actually super nice. I'll see you at the bar later." And takes off. I'm like, "Oh, okay, good, thanks." Okay. So it was nice that he took a moment to let us know, hey, I'm not usually this aggressive and gruff, but I'm one of those guys who stays in the character while I'm, being the character.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay. Cool.
He was very much, and I used to do a podcast back at iHeartRadio called Extreme Pro Wrestling Radio. When you're in the interview, he's very much, he's what they call a kayfabe in wrestling. He kayfabes the interview.
Yeah.
But you turn the mics off, and he's very much Mike Mizanin, and the coolest guy you'll ever talk to. In fact, we were riding up in the elevator together, and I was firmly in my Charcot foot at the time. And he asked me what had happened. I told him, my leg bone tried to go through my ankle and my foot. And he went, "I have never had an injury like that in all the time I've wrestled." He goes, "I don't know how you do it." And he was shocked. I mean, he's like, "You walk on that thing?" I go, "Yeah." And he's like, "Whoa." He was just laid out, right? But yeah, a very nice guy, a wonderful guy.
He was super nice and nice to everybody, top to bottom, from the, everybody that worked on our crew to all of us, to even there were times when he was wrestling on a tour, they do the or whatever, and somehow found out that we were filming nearby and sent a text to everybody just being like, "Hey guy, let's meet up." And it was 5 years later or something, still just a nice guy and just always down to pay his respects and say hello. I haven't talked to him in 15 years. I'm not saying we're still buddies by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But, nice guy.
Yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. With this book, with A Life with Ghosts, True, Terrifying, and Insightful Tales from My Favorite Haunts, it's kind of an introduction to who Steve Gonsalves is. If you had to write a second volume, if you had to say, okay, you got an idea of who Steve is, I want to go further and let you know what it is about me that you need to know. If you had to make a second book, what would you put in it?
I think it would be called A Life. Oh, God, I don't, well, there will be other books. So I do have ideas for, what's going to be the next one. But if I had to say do A Life with Ghosts Volume 2, I would probably do it very much the same way. And, but add because it was really hard to pick just certain places. A lot of them fit the criteria that I sort of built to hone in, what I was going to focus on. And so I'd like to showcase a lot of the places and what went on behind the scenes and what we do as investigators and the real grandiose, history of the places that I had to leave out. Yeah, I'd probably do that. I keep teasing Dave that if he doesn't write a book, I'm going to write a book called A Life with Dave Tango.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to make all the money, and he's going to be left in the dust. I tell you what, I'm already Halfway there.
With a life with Dave Tango? Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that should be the cover right there. Yeah.
We're already halfway
You
there.
just have to put your arm around that cutout like this, and then take a selfie, and then you've got the cover, right?
I have one of these for everybody. Not everybody in the world, but
Oh, look at that! My life with Jay. That'll be book 4. Yeah.
everybody from our team.
Right. Oh, my life with Sherry. There's book 5. Right.
But yeah, no, there will be. Yeah, I don't think the next book would be A Life of Ghosts Volume 2, unless the publisher wants to put that out.
Okay.
But the ideas they have now, yeah, there'll be another.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. This initial book was incredibly fascinating because, again, you only have so much time in 42 minutes to put yourself on screen, put the case on the screen. The interaction, I think, between all of you in Ghost Hunters is so fascinating that they always want more, right? They always want to find out more about you guys. And even though we've had this 20 plus years of getting to know you guys, it doesn't ever seem like it's enough, does it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it seems like enough because we know each other,
True.
But maybe to the audience, because, they know enough, but you have to know enough, but in the ghost world, they always, they have to keep it sort of in line. They'll show some conversation between like me and Tango, or is it me? I get to get that grammar right. Jay and I, me.
I always like and I, but people say it's me and I thought and I was better. But
some of the conversations we have that aren't ghost related do make it onto some of the shows, but for the most part, the things we talk about do stay in the context of like that world, so they don't get to know too much. But it does seem like what they really want to know is, because the show does a good job of showing you what we did, but not really good job, just because there's no time to show you why we did that, or why we decided to do that, use this piece of equipment, get this, talk to this person, investigate those leads, how we ended up really getting there. Because, TV land can be a little bit different. And so putting like the actual, sort of, oh no, this was a place I've wanted to do for 10 years, 15 years, like a place called Theodore's,
Yeah.
And really getting into, and there are places, in this first volume that weren't even, on the show. But for the most part, people want to know really what we're thinking and what's going on, and also the history. Now, in television, you do have to be very accurate. In the research they do, it's very, very, very well done, right? But you're still just talking about producers. You're talking about us as cast members. Just on laptops, going to town halls, going to different places, piecing the history together with, part oral history from locals, also some newspapers, some books that you can read, different things, research. But in the publishing world, that has to be so tight, because it goes through so many rounds with historians, with legal and all of that. So all of the history needs to be pretty much exactly correct. You can't put in any guesswork, and that's one of the things that took, a long, long time. So, for instance, if I'm talking about a place, say I'm talking about Waverly Hills, and I'm making this up, but they say that they tell everybody that goes there that X person passed away in this place, so they're always seen here, and this happened, and this happened. I can't say that in the book unless it really did happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can't just take their history at face value. You have to actually get it all for yourself. And then it goes through legal, where their legal team goes through everything. And it's really, I was impressed by how factual the history had to be. So anybody, even if you're not into the ghosts, if you read any of the paranormal books that are out there, at least through a publisher, like, all the history in there is remarkably accurate. It's very, very cool.
That's very cool. Very cool. Just my own personal aside here. I really liked how they set up these little vignettes on Ghost Nation as opposed to Ghost Hunters. You kind of got into it in Ghost Hunters. It was like, we're going here, we're going there, we're doing the investigation, blah, 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 blah. Very businesslike. Ghost Nation kind of felt like we got to look behind the scenes to you guys, and then we got to the investigation. So I don't know. I felt like it was a little more personal with Ghost Nation. Don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I tell you, the big difference there would be that Jay and I were executive producers on Ghost Nation.
Okay.
So not only did we have final say on edits and things like that, we also had a lot of influence on, the narrative in terms of, what we think the audience would want to see, from a paranormal investigator's point of view.
Right.
What is important, for the audience to see, not just what the network folks think an audience wants to see, but from a paranormal investigator's standpoint. And so Jason, me, and Tango, in meetings and different things like that, really, sent it home that we want them to really feel like they're there with us, way more so than Ghost Hunters, and I feel like they did a good job of that.
Yeah.
If Tango and I got really excited over a haunting, over an experience, you saw us really like excited and high-fiving and like tears coming down our eyes. They didn't show that on Ghost Hunters. They just cut it after the scare and went to, where in this, Jay and I, people thought forever that it was just Tango and I playing jokes on each other. Like Ghost Nation, we let it all really breathe. Jay's playing pranks and everybody. I'm joking on Jay. It's when we're laughing together, it's real robust, friendship, laughter. And that came out of just, I think, having a little more nuance into how the show is. And then we went back to Ghost Hunters, and it was a little more of that. All right, let's get to business.
Yeah.
We're here to help, which is great. That's also, that show, that it's funny to think and strange to say, but, that format of a paranormal television show didn't exist, until
Right.
Ghost Hunters. So these sort of, you have the client, you have this, you have the research, investigation, reveal, this, all this, didn't exist then. So it was just cool to, sort of see how they, put that all together. And then when you have a little more say in the startup with Ghost Nation, bring a little more of the actual like paranormal investigator side of it
Right.
to it.
Well, you look at how it was a little more relaxed with Ghost Nation. Then you look at a show like Destination Fear, where those kids are really relaxed in what they did. You see the evolution, right, as to how paranormal TV progresses, right? And now you see what Jay is doing on his channel, and it's really just buddy with him and JV. So to me, it seems like, and you see what even with Katrina and Taddy are doing with their channel, it really is back to a guerrilla style of filming. I mean, it really is. You're there, you're immersed, and it's not so much. And I think that's part of what, originally it had to be a little stiff. It had to be formal in order to introduce the genre in 2004, 2005. It had to, we had to get that formal introduction as to this is what it is. It had to be professional. It had to be, it had to be serious in order for the public to take it seriously. Now that we know what it is, we can show personality, right? At least that's what it feels like.
Yeah, they can definitely, take and especially I think with things like YouTube, they're not like with TV, you have to explain a lot because you get a lot of channel surfers that just pop on. Oh, what's this? So every 10 minutes, you have to say what EMF is. You have to say what this is. You have to explain these things. You have to say again what a residual haunting is. You have to put Steve is, lead investigator every time you see it, because there's always people that just YouTube, you're not really getting that. Even if it comes across your page from an algorithm, it's probably because you already looked at some paranormal type of stuff. Or you're searching that. So to your point, you don't need as much of a explanation to it. It's already sort of laid out there. People know what it is and what we're doing. And I will say also that the way that started is, and the way it is now for the most part, and why it's a little more rough and raw is, a lot of these people aren't editors. They're not story producers. They're not. They just go. They shoot. They taught themselves how to edit.
Yes.
And then they rough cut it, and that's all it is. That's all they know how to do. That's all that it could be. And so that's what the internet fell in love with. And it's earnest, it's true to form, it's raw, it's fun, it's more personal, it's more, oh, I can do that. But also, if you look at folks like, Project Fear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now you have people who have, I mean, a lot of them, once their channel gets big, you'll see that now they can pay an editor.
Yep.
They can pay $5,000 a video for an hour. They can pay the, editor. So they get a little more robust, that sort of thing. But with Project Fear, Dakota was the editor when their show was on. He was one of the lead producers. He was the editor. As a team, they were all producers. They were all, but Dakota was the one doing all of the editing, so their show, God love the amount of work they're putting into it, already looks like a network television show. It's beautiful. It's great.
Yeah, he's crazy talented. Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah.
And then the nicest, that's just dreamboats, all of them. But so you can have that now also on YouTube, have that polished, awesome look. And, but I think to your point, that a little more raw with minimal editing, minimal transition, works best on YouTube, probably for the wide range of things.
I kind of like the fact too, and again, I'll keep this short, but I kind of like the fact too that you do have the polished television professional now saying, you know what, I'm taking it to this guerrilla format of YouTube, and I don't necessarily need a network anymore. It's kind of the Prince theory. You and I were talking about Prince off air. But it's kind of that Prince theory of, you know what, I can do my own distribution. I don't need a network. I'm going to take it right to the people. Why not? If the networks aren't going to get with it in 2026, we'll get with it with the people and just give them right what they want,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, network, it's great because you get a support system, you get a think tank, you get all of these things that you don't have to pay for, right? They're paying you, you don't have to. But if you do, a channel, you are now having to do all of these things. You have to produce it, you have to shoot it, you have to get it edited, you have to, distribute it. You're just putting it on your channel or maybe streaming it somewhere, that sort of thing. And network is good. You have, I guess, that whole thing behind you is nice to have.
Yeah.
That whole tank and that whole support system. And then a place to air it, obviously. You now have a platform to air with a guaranteed audience. You don't have to build your audience. Say you start a YouTube channel, 4 years, maybe you'll be at 200,000 people. It's great, but it's actually awesome. It's fantastic. It's great. But a lot of people, I think they'll look at that and just think that's maybe a long distance run to get to a payoff. You know what I mean? Where network TV seems like you can get there much quicker, But
I think and I know it takes something special to be on network television. And so you can't necessarily just think I'm going to put on a black hat, a black T-shirt and make it on network TV. That's not realistic.
It's not. No, it is much more, especially nowadays. It's much more difficult. But there's room for both. There really is. I love seeing the folks on, the internet, on YouTube, do whether it's paranormal or whatever it is. I follow a lot of folks on that. I love a lot of the Disney folks. Watch all of them. I live off of their channels. There's some really important. And there's some great YouTubers who are doing really educational content that is, really solid, and it's not guesswork. It's all, factual, and they have a real team behind them. And there's some great stuff.
Yeah.
There's some slop, obviously, and I guess that's the problem. There's a low bar for entry. Whereas a network, there's a high bar, so you're kind of,
Right.
on the internet, you kind of have to really swim through a lot of slop to get to the, to
But
get to the,
that's the thing. In order to get big numbers on the internet, you really have to still accelerate to that high bar, right? You still have to hit that high bar in order to get those numbers. I think that's the key there. And it's a harder algorithm to try and hit too, because there are some people who are putting out a quality product who still haven't hit that algorithm. So it's tough to figure out what it takes in order to hook onto that algorithm. Okay, one last question. I know I've been threatening to let you go here for the last 15 minutes or so, but the one last question is this: in the time that we've known each other, and in the time that you've been with Ghost Hunters, we've gone from everything from a K2 meter, simple low line meter that is supposed to be reading electrical signals from a wall, to some of the most unusual equipment that's been jury rigged to try and detect ghosts. Notice me using finger quotes here. Of all those pieces of equipment that you've seen come and go in your time, what do you tend to gravitate to when you go out on an investigation?
My favorite piece of equipment, I'll always go for a standard EMF gauge, a Lutron or the Sperry. Those are the two, in my opinion, the best. Tri-field meters are great, but very sensitive. I see a lot of people using them improperly, sadly. They'll hold it in their hand and try, it's like, oh, what are you doing? That's a set it and forget it device. What are you doing?
Yeah.
No big deal. But thermal's great. I'd say my favorite piece of equipment is an infrared or a full spectrum camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Infrared camera, I think, is one of the most, if not the most valuable tool we have as a paranormal investigator. Full spectrum, although it's not really full, you do get a little bit more. And I know it sounds elementary, but there's a reason. First off, you have a way to document your experience, right? So if you don't have a way to document your experience, and I know it's not all about that, there really needs to be a human element to it. You want to be there. You don't need evidence to, I know that, but if you can't document it, it's just a story. It's just a story. That's all it is. I can run to the front and tell you, I just saw this ghost walk through the wall and come at me. Whoa, great. Did you get on camera? No. Did you get a picture? No. Was there no. It's just a story, so not saying everything has to be documented, but you at least have a way that you can if something does happen. So you're recording video footage. You're also recording audio, so you have a potential for electronic voice phenomena, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But also now you can see everything in the visible spectrum, right? You can see your red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, right? You can see everything that you could see with your eyes. But now you add infrared, you can see everything in the visible spectrum, but also now you can see in the infrared spectrum, so you can see in another spectrum. You add, full spectrum, which really I think just gives you ultraviolet and a few other. You can now see in some other spectrums that aren't visible with just your eyes. So that's quite valuable. If there is a way that you can add an EMF gauge to that, that'd even be even better. But anytime you have a device that is multiple, it's very possible you're getting 3 or 4 kind of devices in one instead of just having 4 awesome devices. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it might not be the best idea. But that for me, thermal is quite valuable. For me, still, those laser grids, if used properly, is a great piece of equipment. EMF, of course, but I do find EMF is improperly used, 95% of the time. It's not a yes or no. You're not going to get yes or no responses, unfortunately.
Right.
Maybe you can somehow. You're not going to, but if it's used properly, it's very, very valuable. The those would be my favorites. There are some I'm a little weary of, that I don't feel comfortable using for certain reasons. But for the tried and true devices, I'd say those are my favorites.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, if you want to go out hunting with Steve and go out ghost hunting with Steve, you can do so by going to the Belle Grove Plantation. There's a trip available right now that you can get tickets for. Of course, Belle Grove is in King George, Virginia. It is Saturday, June 13th, and we have a link in the description of this program so you can go out hunting with Steve and go have a good time out there. And you can see some of these techniques for yourself and actually ask Steve a few questions as far as that goes. If you want to learn more about Steve, well, by gosh, there's a book out there you can buy and learn more about Steve. It's called Life with Ghosts, True, Terrifying, and Insightful Tales from My Favorite Haunts. Steve just held it up there in the video if you're watching the video. And it's written with Michael Aloisi, right? Is that how he pronounces his last name?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
You only got to hit me over the head once to learn that, Steve. But that book is available right now, and we have a link in the description of this program as well for that book. Steve, I want to thank you so much for being with us once again, my friend.
Of course. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you soon this year.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. It's always a fun time seeing you on the road and catching up with you and getting more and more stories, because you have so many good stories, my friend. I greatly appreciate you being with us. And again, thank you so much for the 20 years. It's been so much fun. And I value your friendship and treasure you as well. I really do appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Very much.
Folks, that'll do it for this week. Again, if you are listening to this show and you're not watching it, well, by gosh, we're the original Darkness Radio on YouTube. Go there, like, and subscribe. It's real simple. Otherwise, if you go to darknessradioshow.com, the audio and video live in that one spot. If you just look up the show and click on the header there, you'll see both the audio and video right there. You can either listen or watch right there, darknessradioshow.com. Second, keep your eye on the Apple app because 26.2.1, I believe, is the latest iOS. We've had to update the Apple app. Make sure that you update your Apple app there. So there's that. And third, it is the weekend. Boy, is it cold outside. I think we alluded to it with Mally. Make sure that you get your elderly and disabled people, get them taken care of out there in that cold weather. There's snow to shovel. There is people that need warm coats. There's people that need warm hats. There's people that need to be taken care of in this cold weather. Make sure that you get out there this weekend and make sure that those elderly and disabled people are safe out there this weekend. Please do so as a favor to your friends here at Darkness Radio. Be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. Look in on those elderly and disabled people. A message from your friends here at Darkness Radio. By the way, invite them to your Super Bowl party too. I mean, it's a big game this weekend, right? So make sure you invite a few elderly and disabled people in your community to your Super Bowl party. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. All right, speaking of the big game, I'm not going to say go anybody. By the way, Seahawks fans, I hope your team wins. Patriots fans, I hope your team wins. That's just all there is to it. I'm not going to tell you who I'm rooting for, but you'll find out next week. But that'll do it. For Mally Fox, for Jessica Freeberg, for Beer City Bruiser, for Travis Thorpe, I'm Tim Dennis. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for continuing to watch and listen to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.